What's going on, everybody? It's Childish back after the game, coming at you with another Summoner's War video. In today's video, we're going to be bringing you guys a comprehensive guide on the artifacts with regards to Summoner's War. Everything you need to know, that's what we're going to be doing today. Now, in order to help me out with that, we have an Epic Fail member. RickGastly is going to be here doing his thing. RickGastly right below me. I think you guys can see him on the video. Hello there, sir. How we doing?
I am fantastic. Thank you very much for having me on the show. I appreciate it. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, A little nervous because we haven't made an educational video since like 2014. So hopefully the people, it hasn't been that long, but hopefully everybody enjoys it. So, but yeah, guys, pretty excited to get this one underway because again, was talking to Rick here a little bit on the side. And when it comes to content, as far as the community goes, there's a couple of things that have been put out there, but a lot of things that haven't been updated. And Rick, being an up-and-coming content creator for the Summoners War community, was asking, hey, what kind of content does the community need? And I'm like, you know what? Artifacts would be great. You want to hit it? Let's do it. And now we're finally here. So, my man, before we get into everything, can you do me a little bit of favor? Because I know you are an up-and-coming YouTuber out there. Can you tell us a little bit about, how you found your way into Summoners War and what motivated you to be a content creator?
Sure. So, I mean, I've been playing Summoners War for far too long, I would say, pretty sure since release. Not on this account. I played like another account, lost it, and then made another one. But I've been on this particular account for probably 7 years, give or take. So it's been quite some time. And then I transitioned into the content creation just from watching you and YD and Sean B, and it's always a lot of fun. And this game is so tilting that the potential for content is so high. And I just love that about it.
Right. And like I said, I'm excited because as I stated in my previous video, I got a couple of goals set in place. And one of the goals that I have, in this upcoming like fourth quarter is to really improve my artifacts, because I've been able to reach out to a lot of different endgame players that have taken a look at my account. And one thing that I say is, as far as what's holding me back from getting G1 is, not having enough artifacts, not, prioritizing them on specific units. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Again, guys, we're going to be giving you guys everything you need to know when it comes to Summoners War artifacts. And it's my pleasure to bring you Rick here because as you guys might have guessed, we talked about this video. We talked about what we wanted to showcase here, and he definitely went above and beyond as far as providing this information in an easy to understand format. So without further ado, my man, let's get to it.
Yeah, so my goal here is to make this as simplistic as possible, right? In the information that's out there for artifacts, there's a lot of data. It really, Josh, you and I could sit here and talk about this for hours, maybe even days. It's incredible. But there are a lot of really simplistic ways to look at it to maximize it. And I wanted to create a guide here with you that's really more geared towards not necessarily the casual player, but just people that aren't or don't have the time maybe to run statistics and really take a deep dive. So that's what this is going to be about. It's going to make it super easy, super simple, and easy to understand.
Yeah, buddy. All right, let's get to it.
All right. So artifacts, everyone knows what artifacts is at this point. Obviously, runes being the main thing for so long, right? But artifacts are huge. They really are, especially when it comes to certain things that we're going to go over here. So artifacts come in, everyone knows this, but you have HP, defense, attack. You can do 200 on HP, 200 on defense, and 3,000 HP. You can do 3,000 HP, 200 on defense, 200 on attack when it comes to the max. So when it comes to base stats, that's pretty substantial. So I want to look at this initially in early game, mid game, and late game. So for early game players, you should farm B1 for white artifacts. Now, it's a bit strange. Most people may not want to do that. So why would you want to do that? Now, it's RNG free stats. So in this game, so much about pulling monsters, farming runes is really RNG heavy. So you have the potential to put a lot of effort in and get nothing back. I mean, you have to be pretty unlikely, which a lot of us are, but that's why we focus on maxing like glory towers, for example, right? We want to hammer in those glory points, get those guaranteed stats. So it's kind of similar to that early game. So 200 HP, 200 defense, 3,000. Wow, I gotta fix that. 200 attack.
Epic fail, right? Epic fail. Fix it later. It's no big deal.
That's what we do here. But
he's part of the epic fail community, if you guys don't know. Okay.
That's right there. So 200 attack, 200 defense, 3,000 HP. Now, with the white artifacts specifically, is a super low mana cost. So when you really need those stats early game just to survive, to get to your B10s, to get through your TOAs, to get up to, even to your B12s, you are super mana poor. I mean, I'm still, not to this day, I'm not as bad, but with artifacts specifically, you can get mana poor very quick. Now, one warning is conversion stones. Do not use them on white artifacts. Now, you probably shouldn't use them on even blues, but blues can go a long way, and we'll get to that as well. So early game, just get those stats, farm the whites. They're super cheap to upgrade, and you still, regardless of the grade. So if it's a white, a blue, a purple, or an orange, you're still getting those guaranteed 200 flat stats and 3,000 flat for HP.
Gotcha.
So yeah, early game, they are very impactful. Now, mid game. So it's kind of hard to say where mid game starts and end game starts, or mid game ends and end game starts. But for mid game, you're really not going to be using whites any longer. Blues can be good. I mean, you see even high end G3 players using blue artifacts because if you double roll, say additional damage, and then you can not quad roll, but you can get another 2 additional rolls and then convert one, you can get just full additionals very quickly when it comes to the damage side. Purple are going to be the majority of your pulls, right? You're going to be rolling those. And then orange, obviously, it's endgame. If we get all orange artifacts, that would be great. But they have even more RNG because the rolls are much more random.
Right.
Now, mid game is fantastic for securing like Bale R5, right? It's for mid game, and maybe, I mean, you don't really get into Bale until mid game, but securing Bale stats for R5 is huge because your Bale might be dying, right? You get some HP, you get 3,000 extra HP. That's huge. And then for my boy Childish here, for Chikaru.
Yeah.
Chikaru's huge.
Gotta get it.
I know you've been getting some jazz from some people about the Chikaru lately.
That is correct, sir.
It's very helpful for that because you do flat defense, right, on everything. And you can focus on team up damage. Team up damage is huge because that's all you're doing. And additional damage based on defense. So fantastic for building Chikaru. And you don't even really need to focus on those 2 stats, but I do recommend that. And I love Chikaru. It's just, you got to pay a little bit because you're burning through runs so quickly. And then lastly, I recommend running 1 dungeon at a time because this way you can focus on extra damage to the element in that dungeon. So we'll get to that a little bit later on. Okay. But say in Dragons, right? In Dragons, you're attacking fire monsters, except for the crystals, but the biggest part is getting down the Zyros and getting down the main dragon, which are fire element. So you can focus on extra damage to fire. Sure. So be very helpful. Very helpful mid-game. Obviously, you and I are far past the mid-game point, so now let's look at endgame, right? Right. So when it comes to endgame, I really look at it in 3 different phases. So arena, it's not as popular anymore, but a ton of people still rush. You can get a lot of crystals, and you got to get those red stars. I mean, you need that on the profile. That's it. So when it comes to arena, is still, even to this day, is owned by Lucians. I mean, when it comes to AO, Lucians are still so prominent. So with Lucian damage, you want to focus on additional damage based on attack. All the additional damages are good, but ideally you want to prioritize attack because that's usually your highest base stat. And the additional damage does scale on it doesn't scale on base, it scales on your total attack. And crit damage skill 3 is also good. However, we'll get into this a little bit later on, but crit damage on skill 3, or just crit damage in general, it doesn't actually scale as well as additional damage can. Like, for example, on arena offense, what do you typically run nowadays, Childish?
I run a shield roll cleave with Alicia, Grogan, Tiana, and who am I spacing up here? My Galleon, jeez.
Okay. Yeah, so Alicia is fantastic for additional damage because she has multi-hits on that main skill that you need that main skill to kill so you can cycle into that second skill. So you would want to focus on just prioritizing that particular skill, and it really can go a long way. Now, on the flip side for defense, since it's still Lucian dominated for the most part, wind damage reduction can go a long way. So it's fantastic for that. Bomb arena offenses are kind of OP right now because there's no negation from artifacts on bomb damage, and you can get higher bomb damage with arts. So there's two things that can really impact that.
Sure.
So you want to keep that in the mind. Building a bomb AO, I mean, obviously you kind of need Sierra for that, so it could be a little bit challenging, but those 7-year scrolls, man, I mean, everyone pulled everything.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
I know, because I fight the same things a lot.
Right,
So it's pretty challenging for that. Now, when it comes to guild content, obviously, this is where you and I typically tend to focus, except, until this new skin came out for your Light Dark Nat 5. So we're going to have to, you really have to transition into that RTA.
I'm pretty much quitting Siege and Guild Wars, just want to say right now.
I mean,
yeah.
There's no time. Like, if you want to focus on RTA, you got to put the time in. It's rough.
Yeah.
It really is. So when it comes to guild content, Siege and Guild War, decreased damage stats for traps are huge. So you want to really build traps. In upper G3 right now, almost all the Carcanos have less damage from Dark because of Carl. Because Carl is really the best counter to Carcano at the moment. So you'll see a ton of high-end G3 players running less damage from Dark on Carl because he needs to one-shot, and if he doesn't, you lose. So that's just an example of the traps. You know the old school trap, copper trap meta. It's the same concept. Just now you can do it even more so.
Right.
So you really want to focus on what your comp is, the common counters to it, and build traps in accordance with that.
Gotcha.
And then lastly, we have RTA. So this is where Childish is going to start crushing it.
Yep.
And myself too. I mean, I love the skin. So I haven't rushed RTA ever, but I'm actually going to push for at least G1, maybe G2 this season. I have to. So for RTA, artifacts should really be focused around specific counters against common comps, right? It's a shame, but you fight the same things pretty much over and over again at this point. It's a little challenging. So you need to, it actually makes it even easier to build arts because you know what you're going to be fighting. Sure. So, like, for example, a great example of that is Sean B. He built a Leica, a really slow Leica that's designed to just shred Leo comps. So he doesn't ban the Leo, and he brings in the Leica with super high attack and low HP, and he just one-shots everything. And artifacts can help with that, with the life drain and additional damage on wind, things like that. So that's really good. And then additional damage. Everyone, it's kind of common knowledge that additional damage is king right now. So oracles, Okeanos, you want to focus on that. Praha is huge right now. I know you love your Praha, Charles. Yes. You're running the Vio Praha now?
Yeah, Vio will like 263 or something like that. One of my better rune units on my account.
Yeah, Vio Praha is so good. It really is. But she can do some heavy damage on skill 1. It's incredible. So that's pretty much where Endgame's focusing now. So efficiency. Now, this is something you have always preached. Efficiency, stats over sets is what you
stats over sets,
right?
From the original video years ago.
Yeah, so and it's true. And with artifacts, it's even better. So efficiency, it's all about rolls. Rolls are huge for arts because you need to understand what the max rolls are, and you want to really try to prioritize those. So efficiency, all comes back to efficiency, right? Now, my main tips that you want to try to abide by when it comes to artifacts. So multi-hitters are gaining the most from this. You want to prioritize additional damage. It is flat, ignore defense through damage. So, and it also scales on the, whatever the stat is. So if it's additional damage based on attack, it's going to scale on your attack, not on the base attack. So it's huge. That's why you see these Junos just shredding. So fantastic. And now another thing is flat main stats, right? So let's go back to efficiency here for a moment. Like, how bad is Perna's defense, Childish?
Oh God, what is it, like 286 or something like that? Not even 300.
It's abysmal. It's I think it's one of the lowest base stats in the game.
Right.
So if Perna can get flat 200 defense by just slapping 2 main set artifacts on him, that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
So you wanna actually look at the base stats of these units that you're building, and also keep that in mind when you're creating artifacts, because you can get the most value out of that lowest stat, because it's not going to scale well on percentage based runes.
So with a unit like Perna, like that has an absurd amount of attack and whatnot here, you would actually recommend going with a flat stat that is generally lower versus trying to provide a little bit more DPS on the attack?
Well, it really depends on the situation, right? That's why artifacts are super situational. But yes, I mean, if you're going for RTA where it's really all about as much stats as you can pack on these monsters, because you need HP, you need defense, you need accuracy. RTA is so rune intensive that if you prioritize the lower base stats, you'll gain a lot more efficiency.
Okay, yeah, that's right. We're still talking about the efficiency aspect. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then, so you want to build artifacts first. That's big, because the runes can be changed, right? You can gem in different stats, and your 2, 4, and 6 can be so diverse, because you have all these defense runes laying around that you may not use as much, or an HP, or instead of using a slot speed on 2, you can use an HP to get more tankiness if you can get speed and sub. So if you build your artifacts first, your runes can be more interchangeable, which will spread that out a lot. So those are really the main tips for maximizing your efficiency when it comes to this. Do you have any questions on that?
No, that's pretty good. I kind of use that aspect when I'm looking at units that are very heavily reliant on like accuracy per se. If I can find an artifact that has skill 2, skill 3 accuracy, and I get super low on the or super high on the rolls there, that gives me a little bit of wiggle room as far as trying to get the overall accuracy without using like a slot 6 accuracy rune and getting a little bit more efficiency. Yeah.
Exactly. So these are all the substat options. Now, there's a lot of information here. It's less about the stats that are available and more about understanding the max rolls. That's the most important thing. So I'm not going to really go over this, because it's just percentages. It's something that you're going to retain if I went through all this with you or with anyone to retain this.
I know I would.
So just what I recommend doing is, if you're a serious player, save this file somewhere, right? That way, when you're doing rolls, just take a look at it, see where your rolls are at, see how efficient that is. I mean, you can always use Rune Optimizer as well, which is a fantastic tool. Shout out to Zandro, but definitely keep this in mind as well. Now, and let me jump back to that real quick. Also, remember, those certain sub properties changed. How long ago was that, Childish? Maybe 6 to 8 months ago?
Somewhere around there. Yeah.
So they got rid of some of the worst things, which is really nice. And they really increased your ability to maximize artifacts. So artifacts got a pretty big buff. Now, for best artifact substats. Now, this is not a end-all be-all situation. Everything's a little bit different, but for the most part, additional damage is king. I know this is common knowledge, but additional damage paired with multi-hitting skills, it ignores defense. So it's flat damage. So if you don't crit, it doesn't matter. It does the same damage. So that's super important. Also, damage dealt on X. Now, this is more niche because you have to be hitting that certain element. But ideally, you do want 2 damage. You want damage dealt and additional damage if you can get it. Now, decreased damage is also fantastic. This game is also a lot about optimizing things that you can't control, like your defenses that you're not actually physically controlling.
Sure, yeah.
So decreased damage on opposing elements, and the same element is huge, because if you're a fire unit, you're not really going to be attacked by a wind unit, and if you are, it's probably not going to be that impactful. Now, exceptions. I'm going to go back to a lot of what Childish says, because I like it. So as Childish always says, you want to build teams, not units, right? So you wanted to build comps. You don't want to just build a unit. You need a cohesive comp for taking something down. And this stands true even more so with artifacts, because by harnessing that decreased damage by X and damage dealt on X, you can build traps super effectively, or just way to one-shot units super effectively. Right. So when it comes to prioritization, yes, additional damage is king, but decrease and additional damage can be huge. So definitely don't take those subs for granted. Now,
Oh,
when it
look at
comes
that.
to
Nice.
so when it comes to damage stacking, there's a couple things that are pretty easy to understand, but you do want to kind of understand how they operate. So the buff increasing stats, meaning defense buff, attack buff, speed buff, to make those more impactful, those subs, they can stack with additional damage artifacts.
Okay.
So if you're a Savannah and you're using additional damage based on speed, a Savannah may not be the best because she doesn't multi-hit, but I'm still going to use that as an example.
Yeah.
So if Savannah has a speed buff, because she buffs speed, she also scales up speed. So if you're doing the buff that increases the effectiveness of that speed buff along with additional damage, your additional damage is now scaling off that even higher buff that you're getting from the speed.
Right.
So they work really well together. However, buff increasing stats are not additive. They are multiplicative. So it's not as good.
Sure.
So you don't get the full, like with accuracy, like, Childish, like accuracy, skill 3 Hathor, you put plus 10% accuracy.
Right.
You get 10%. You get an additional 10%. That's not how the buff increasing stats work. So you only get a fraction of
It's a shame. It's a shame.
It is. But it could, if we don't want the super buff meta to come back, because that's not the most fun when you're just fighting buff. So yeah. Now, additional damage cannot stack with damage dealt on X. So that is something to keep in mind. And another thing, which is lesser known, additional damage does not scale as well once crit damage hits a certain level cap. So if your Lucian has 250 crit damage, you're going to gain more from additional damage than you are from crit damage on skill 3. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah.
So that is important to keep in mind as well. It still will increase your damage, but not as much. So you lose some value.
For 99% of the people out there, they're not going to have 250 crit damage, so I think they're going to be okay.
Well, regardless, even it's anything over, I think it's 200. I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah.
But it's a manageable crit damage. It's not like it's some crazy crit damage.
Right.
But so it is something to keep note of. Now, when it comes to best combinations, obviously we spoke about additional damage by X. So you want to keep in mind the type I'm sorry, let me say that again. You want to keep in mind the type of monster. So attack type, you want additional damage by attack. Same concept with what you're going to be focusing on. So Illusion, you'd want additional damage by attack to get the most value out of that. And then this is what you want on your artifacts. Like if you can go down the list and every monster put all these for 90% of monsters, this is the best combination to do. You do additional damage by X. You do decreased damage from X. Now, you'd want to do one for the opposing element. So if Childish is using his Perna, you'd want less damage from water and less damage from fire. So neutral and strong against you. That's what you want. You want to prioritize that. So that's the best thing that you can do for most units. There'll be some exceptions like some life drain, recovery units, accuracy, but if you can, ideally go additional damage, decreased damage to neutral and same. Does that make sense?
It does, yep.
Awesome, yeah. There are three exceptions there are exceptions to everything, just like I had mentioned on that last one. For example, Miho does incredibly well with damage plus as HP gets lower. Since she's normally attacking from close to like 1 HP, right?
Sure.
You slap Miho down to nothing, she's gonna counter or just attack you. That she scales super well in that. So for her, you wouldn't want to do additional damage or damage dealt on X, especially since she's a neutral element, being dark. That's a great option for her. So there are a couple different things. You really want to look, that's why you want to put your artifacts on first and then look at your runes after. And then recovery skill, skill 2, skill 3, you were just talking about that, how you like to, or accuracy, I'm sorry. When it comes to recovery, though, skill 2, skill 3, it can be valuable with many healers, especially passives like Molly with that skill 3 heal, that can go really well. Now, it doesn't scale as well. That is multiplicative as well. I don't believe it's additional. So, but if you can get max rolls, like you can get 30% healing on Molly's skill 3, that's big. It really is.
Right.
And then accuracy too. So it can be very helpful for mainly stat heavy monsters. So when you're trying to rune up that savannah and you're like, oh my God, I need attack, I need HP, I need defense, I need accuracy, I need crit rate, I need crit damage. You know, you need all these things, and it takes like so much of your box when it comes to runes. That's really good for that. Same thing with Chunk Punk, super stat heavy. You got any questions on that?
The only question I got is like, what seems to be the priority for a units that have some kind of healing aspect but doesn't come in the form of a heal? For example, like a Kamoon that provides the passive shield. What artifact stats would people focus on there, since that's still a pretty meta monster for like Guild War defense and siege defense?
So Kamoon does really well on additional damage by attack and by HP, because you're focusing on that, and he has multi-hit on skill 1. When it comes to skill 2, usually Kamoons aren't but with too high of crit damage. So crit damage skill 2 is actually really good for that. When it comes to recovery, you can use recovery. They do stack on them, and you can use Vamp Life Drain. Life Drain would probably be an equally as helpful option on that skill 2 if you're really relying on that heal and sustainability from Kamoon. So that's a really good option as well. But for Kamoon in this meta, I would prioritize damage, because usually you'll be able to get those stanky stats. Usually you'll be able to get those tanky stats in the runes for Kamoon.
Sounds good.
So I mean that's the general rule of thumb. So you really want to focus on additional damage. You really want to. There are niche things like Leica is really good on Life Drain, and he's also not a multi-hitter. But the Revenge sub is actually really good as well. So that's a good one. But at the end of the day, it's really about looking at each unit individually, and that's why artifacts is so hard to maintain. Because you can't just sell them like you do with runes. Like when Childish pulls a rune that doesn't roll the first time purple on speed, he sells it. Artifacts aren't like that, because there's so many units and so many different things that you can do, which makes it really unique as well.
Yep. Gives a little bit more variety to you. So that's going to be the end for the video, guys. Once again, on the top of this recording, we ended up doing it where the right in the time of the RT Italian, so we didn't get a chance to check out the artifacts for Rick. But what we're thinking about is, in addition to all the questions you guys have, or maybe video ideas that you want to see down the road, we'll go ahead and do like a part 2 video, come back to the account, take a look at some of the artifacts, why he has it on the specific units, just kind of explain his whole thought process on this, and kind of tying in the video that he just provided you with his stuff here. So yeah, I think it's going to be a great video. I'm really excited to get into it. And once again, fam, if you guys want to show your support, the same support that you've been showing me for the past 7 years, do me a favor, do yourself a favor. Head on over in the comment section down below, click on RickGastly's link there. I believe he's right around 150 subscribers, with the majority of his videos having anywhere from 2 to 3 times views, some of them in the 1,000 views. So obviously his content is great. I'm really excited for you guys to check it out, and I know he's just going to continue to grow if you guys see the effort that he puts into these videos here. So once again, Rick, thank you so much for coming on board and helping me out provide this content for the community.
Thank you, Charles. It was a pleasure. I had a lot of fun, and I look forward to speaking to you in the future and crushing Guild Wars. I mean, we got to rush again. We got to get that champion.
Wait a minute. Let me get my artifacts first, and then we get our rush. Okay, we got to get those artifacts first. Okay. All right. So that's gonna be it, fam. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It's your boy Childish and RickGastly with ChildishPlays. Checking out. Take care, and we'll see you all in the next one. We're out.